Today we're going to be going over the top 10 gold farms of the week. Let us begin. Starting off with Storm Silver Ore. This one has proved to be quite reliable at this moment in time and is pulling in a decent amount of gold on pretty much on most regions. This means that at the moment this material is actually quite valuable in actually to farm up, and judging by this it's actually really handy in order to do. All you have to do is make your way over towards the Dragonflight zone in BFA, and what you're going to be wanting to do is flying around the entire zone. You can find a route on the screen right now for you to actually follow. Failing that, you can also go into Worth It and import that route. However, in Dragonflight, this one has got a few highs and divots all around the entire zone, so I'd really recommend just using a druid. But realistically, you want rank 3s in your platinum Storm Silver Ore, and if you want to, I would recommend it is by making sure that you're doing it as a multi-farm, as you have quite a few bits of anchorweed within this route that actually spawn, and that means you can gain a bit more additional gold. Make sure to also have that at rank 3 as well. Following on to that, we have the Blackrock Depths. Blackrock Depths is performing incredibly well at this moment in time, and I wanted to showcase at least one dungeon on this week, and this is no doubt the Blackrock Depths within Blackrock Mountain. You can either get into there through the Searing Gorge or the Burning Steps. The easiest way is to go from Stormwind and fly over there yourself. However, if you're Horde, then you're going to have to make another route over to there. However, the keynote items that you can get from this dungeon is the Battle Chaser's Greaves, the Blisterbane Wrap, the Stone Shield Cloak, Funeral Pyre Vestments, the Marlam's Grip, Brain Cage, Searing Needle, Doomforge Straight Edge, Rib Splitter, Judge's Gavel, and the Spire of the Stone Shaper. Now, I talked about this in my transmog video, however, I will recommend that the Spire of the Stone Shaper is one of the keynote items, as it's currently going for around about 247,000 gold, pretty much on all values at this moment in time, which is pretty dang awesome overall. Judging by this, you can either do the long method or the short method. The one that you can actually see on screen right now that I'm currently doing is the long method. This one will take roughly around about 40 odd minutes, and the shorter version is literally just veering left and just gathering up everything in that vicinity, burning it down, running back out. I do that if I haven't got a lot of time, and a lot of people don't have a lot of time to gold farm for hours and hours on end. So therefore there is one route that you can actually take that takes roughly around about 20 minutes, or the other one for 40 minutes. It really does depend on the variation in which you actually want to farm for, or the time spent for that particular farm. However, I will always go for the 40 minutes if I really can, and thus I will gain more loot because there is loads more mobs in that area. Following on to number 3, and came out a bit of a shock for me, was the Basilisk Eye farm. Now, I talked about this a couple of years ago, and the Basilisk Eye is used for reputation within TBC, or the Burning Crusade expansion. Now, what you're going to be wanting to do is make your way over towards Terakar Forest and kill the basilisks. You can get the item of the Basilisk Eyes from these basilisks all around the river. The handy note for this particular farm is it's kind of in a square shape, so realistically you're just going around in like a loop, and thus you'll, by the time you actually complete the loop, the rest of the mobs will have respawned, so you've always got mobs to slay. However, alongside this, I would always recommend bringing a Skinner and also the Dark Moon Firewater Potion. This is so you can speed up your skinning speed on these mobs and gain the crystal infused leather and also not hide leather as a bonus to this gold farm. However, the keynote item is the Basilisk Eyes, as they're going for around about 59 gold a piece, and they're really easy to farm up and gain quite a few of these within the hour. You can actually gain a higher value by doing a lot of these old school reputation gold farms at this moment in time, and this is one of the keynote ones that is hitting the high tickers on this, hence why it is at number 3 on this list. Now, jumping in at number 4 is one that I haven't done for quite a while. However, I have seen some traction coming back to this gold farm, and this is the Firelands Trash gold farm. I would always recommend bringing a Skinner once again. This is because when you run into this actual raid in the Firelands within Mount 𝐆𝐀𝐿, What you're going to be want to do is run it on 25-man heroic. You're going to be want to gather up all of the mobs. Do not touch any of the bosses, or otherwise you'll be locked. However, if you just gather up the initial trash in the main vicinity of the area, you can gain quite a lot of old school transmog items from Cataclysm, which sell okay in general. However, the best things you're going for is the recipes and all the skins that you actually gain along with this. You gain quite a lot of savage leather from this, and you can level up your skinning really fast, as I kind of like unlearnt my skinning quite a while ago, so yeah, it was quite handy to actually see this uptick coming back to this gold farm, and thus I was like, oh, I'm going to jump on this as well. So I was able to make gold and level my skinning at the exact same time as getting quite a few Cataclysm transmog recipes in order to actually have for myself, as I'm at the moment gathering up as many recipes as I flipping well can at the moment, because at the moment the recipe market's just doing really well for just general crafting, and thus for that when it comes towards the old world. However, with the Firelands Trash gold farm, you can gain so many different types of things from this particular raid, and you can net yourself in quite a decent amount of gold. The only thing I would add as an additional to this is the tiny treasure chests from the Potion of Treasure Finding, which is an alchemy craft. However, it's pretty cheap on the auction house for an hour's buff, which gives you a load of different types of tiny chests from all of the Cataclysm mobs that you slay, which give you a load of Cataclysm materials. So no doubt you're burning down tons of these mobs within an hour and gaining a load of skins and recipes and old school mog. You're also gaining a ton of materials to go along with this, and it is actually a very viable gold farm for most people at this moment in time, and as it's instance based, there is no competition. Other than that, let's move on to number 5, which is the Templar Encourage. At this moment in time, the Templar Encourage is doing very well. However, the mini Mind Slayer is not the battle pet you're actually going for. What you're going to be wanting to do is make your way over towards Silithus and heading into the right raid entrance for the Temple of Encourage. You'll be want to take out 3 of the bosses, which number 1 is the first boss, Prophet Skerum. He has a chance to drop at roughly around about 10% the mini Mind Slayer. That doesn't really go for an awful lot of gold, so let's move on to the keynote ones, which number 1 from the Twin Emperors from this one is the Anubis idol. It's used in a lot of battle pet battles, and thus it actually goes for a decent amount of gold, especially if you level it up to level 25, and at a reasonable drop chance for this battle pet, it's quite viable in order to run this for roughly around about 8 minutes per week in order to get a hold of this battle pet. Now, if you have quite a lot of alts, it's most likely worth your time, as within an hour's worth of farming you can gain quite a lot of these battle pets. And as it's one weekly raid thing, as it is one raid per week, even if you just have one character, then for 8 minutes it's kind of worth it in order to actually gain some of these ones. At this moment in time, the Anubis idol at level 1 is going for around about 2,000 gold on my server. However, when you actually boost up to level 25, it's going for around about 14,000 gold. That's a pretty sizable uptick, if I do say so myself. What I would do is I would make sense of the Squirt Day and Super Squirt Day and just stockpile all of these ones, then boost them all to 25, then sell them on the auction house. Now on to the main one, which is the Basilisk Globule. The Basilisk Globule, hands down, at level 1 goes for 12,500 gold on my server, and thus when it actually gets up to level 25, it goes roughly around about 25,000 gold. That's a pretty sizable uptick when it comes towards the Basilisk Globule in general. This battle pet has a little caveat to it, where you actually have to have a character that can do physical damage and also frost damage at the exact same time. My little way of getting around it is by using the enchant of Elemental Force, which does elemental damage, which takes into account frost damage, and I just apply it to a low level item and have my character use that, especially when it comes to like my Demon Hunter, my Rogue, my Druid. Those ones can do physical and be able to do that frost damage at the exact same time. It's a bit more trickier with a mage and also a warlock. However, there is other different ways of going about this. But alongside that, it's a very viable gold farm for around about 8 minutes, and overall I find it to be quite helpful for just a weekly run in order to boost the amount of gold we get per week. Now, jumping into our next one, which is the Emerald Well Pling Gold Farm. This one is currently located in Firelands. You can actually find this valuation and also location of this particular gold farm within Worth It. Alongside that, the Emerald Whelpling can be farmed from the Noxious Whelplings within Firelands, which is in the northern top of the actual zone. If you are a druid and you actually use your dream walk, you can actually just take a portal directly there and be able to get to Firelands pretty dang sharpish and be in the exact same spot to farm this up. I would highly recommend bringing a skinner with this one, as you can gain lots of additional leather to go along with this gold farm, which works out to be a nice little uptick. It's not required, however it does increase the amount of gold you gain. Emerald Whelpling currently at the moment is going for around about 26,000 gold at base level 1 and can be increased to around about 35,000 gold for this particular battle pet. However, the drop chance is a little bit low, but alongside that, for an hour's worth of farming, you're most likely going to get this battle pet if you are able to keep up the killing. Mainly what I do is I run around in an entire circle and just turn it into a little loop while I'm watching YouTube or something, and then create a targeting macro if I'm using my druid, or if I want to bring my skinner, I just use a targeting macro on that. However, at the moment on this recording, I can see that I don't use my targeting macro mainly because I'm lazy. But other than that, the Emerald Whelpling is doing amazing at this moment in time when it comes towards gold value for time spent. And other than that, let's move on to the next one, which is the Apexus Crystal Gold Farm within the Blade's Edge Mountains. This is mainly due to the fact that you can gather up this resource, this soul-bound resource of Apexus Crystals from all of the mobs. I generally bring a skinner, as you can skin pretty much half of the mobs that you actually kill, and you gain crystal infused leather and also not high leather to go alongside this to give me more gold overall. I think you can see where we're coming from. But along with that, we do have the idea of gaining those Apexus crystals, which are soulbound. However, if you use them at the nests located in the area of this gold farm, then you have a chance of slaying the rares that spawn from this Apexus crystal spawning, of just placing them near the nest, and gaining the depleted items. Now, the depleted items can be sold in the auction house flat for a reasonable amount of gold. It's anywhere from like 20,000 to 150,000 depending on the depleted item, and those ones tend to sell rather well. However, you can take it a step further and farm more Apexus crystals and actually recombine them into the transmog items they're meant to be. However, I've found more luck with just selling the depleted items than actually using without using the Apexus crystals in order to actually create the transmog items in question. So that is one thing I would recommend right there. However, for number 8 is a oldie but a goodie, and that is the Throttle Moat Extractor. This can be farmed only with an engineer with the Throttle Moat Extractor item. This is where you'll be going around gas clouds within Nagrand. You can go do this in pretty much any other zone in Outland. However, Nagrand is, for me at this moment in time, much more profitable, as it produces moats of air which then coalesce into primal air, which are going for about 450 gold a piece at this moment in time. And I'm loving it at this point because no one farms it. The Throttle Moat Extractor gives me more moats than I would generally be farming up primal air just in like Netherstorm or something. And at the moment, no competition. It's an easy gold farm. You can do it casually, and it pulls in a sizable chunk of gold for an hour's worth of farming, and that's why it's at the nearer the top of the list. Going on to that, we have a good one as well from Warlords of Draenor expansion. This is located within the Tanaan jungle, and this is for the Savage Cub. Now what you're going to be wanting to do is you're going to be wanting to make your way over towards Tanaan jungle and killing the Saber Stalkers. From this you gain the Black Fang claws, which are soulbound. However, you can turn those into the vendor for the Savage Cub battle pet. Now within an hour's worth of farming, you can sell roughly around about 3 of these worth of Black Flying Claws, trade them in, and they're going for roughly around about 10,000 gold per piece on my server, or if you boost them to level 25, it's roughly around 15,000 gold per one. That is nearly about 30,000 gold per hour, or 45,000 gold per hour, depending if you actually spend the time to level them up to level 25. For me, I just sell them flat on the auction house, as the sell rate for this is pretty dang high for a battle pet, and I just find it to be easier in order to do. And to be quite frank, I'm kind of lazy, so when it comes towards making gold with that, the Savage Cub is just an easy gold farm in order to do, to just go numb on the computer and then sell that on for a reasonable amount of gold. And gaining roughly around about 3 of these per hour just works out really well in the grand scheme of things. Which brings us on to our last gold farm for the week that is performing pretty okay. This is the Wartrol Dice gold farm, and I actually managed to gain one while actually recording this video. Generally speaking, the Wartrol Dice, you can gain roughly one every half an hour or 2 every hour, depending on your RNG factor. For me, I generally gain around about 2 per hour, or 2 every 1 hour 20 odd minutes, because I farm up 2 in one session to make sure I always have them on the auction house. Now currently at this moment in time on my server, it was going for about 7,000 gold. However, this can vary, as when I was checking my other servers, this was actually going for around about 20,000 gold. So please double check your server, or double check Worth It under toys inside of Worth It to double check how much it actually is worth before you actually do this. One keynote thing is you need to be a rogue and you're pickpocketing the mobs within Ice Crown. What you're really wanting to do is make your way over towards Hrothgar's Landing, just above Ice Crown. This is just above the Argent Tournament grounds and is very easy in order to get to with your flying mount. What you're going to be wanting to do is just run around in a crescent moon shape, farming up all of the mobs for pickpocketing. By the time you've done your complete loop, they should have their pockets reset, and thus you'll be able to pickpocket them all again and just keep going like that, making it much more efficient that you're always farming mobs, farming mobs, farming mobs. I tried slaying them and seeing if they respawned faster. However, that method doesn't really work, so it's easier for these mobs in order to just let their pockets reset instead of slaying them. Along with that, for me, at this moment in time, the viability for this, for roughly about 2 every hour, give or take, like 10-20 minutes, then I'm finding this to be quite handy in order to restock on the auction house, as it just works really well in the grand scheme of things. Other than that, with the sell rate being one of the highest of the dices that you can farm up with rogues, it just works out really well in the grand scheme of things, and that's why it's at the top of the list. Other than that, please feel free to go towards the Patreon in order to check out all of the different types of gold making resources and or information or video guides or TSM profiles. There is a ton of stuff on the Patreon for anyone to actually go check out and or see. Other than that, have an awesome rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be soon.